Jake Martinez turned off the lights in his small repair shop and wiped his dirty hands on an old cloth. The day had been long and tiring. He had fixed 3 broken air filters, 2 water pumps, and a mining drill that kept making strange noises. His back hurt from bending over machines all day, but he felt good about his work. People on New Haven needed things fixed, and Jake was the best mechanic in the colony. New Haven was not a pretty planet. It was mostly rocks and dust, with a few small towns scattered around the mining sites. The sky was always gray, and the wind never stopped blowing, but Jake liked it here. The work was honest, and the people were friendly. Most importantly, nobody bothered him about his past or asked too many questions. Jake locked the front door of his shop and walked around to the back. He lived in a small apartment above his workshop. It was not much, but it had everything he needed: a bed, a kitchen, and a place to think. As he climbed the metal stairs, he heard something strange. The sound was low and deep, like a machine running badly. But it was not coming from his shop. Jake stopped and listened carefully. The sound came again, and this time he could tell it was coming from the rocky canyon behind his building. It sounded like something was in pain. Jake had always been curious about things that did not work right. That was what made him a good mechanic. He grabbed a flashlight and some basic tools from his shop and walked toward the canyon. The sound got louder as he got closer. The canyon was about 50 feet deep and filled with big rocks that had fallen from the walls over many years. Jake carefully climbed down, following the sound. His flashlight beam danced across the rocks. As he moved deeper into the canyon, then he saw something that made him stop breathing. A huge dragon lay trapped under a pile of fallen rocks. The creature was bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. It was at least 40 feet long from nose to tail, with black scales that looked like polished stone. Even lying on its side, the dragon was taller than Jake. But what shocked Jake the most were the dragon's eyes. They were white and cloudy, like milk. Long scars ran across the dragon's face, and Jake could see that the creature was blind. The dragon was making the low, painful sound he had heard from his shop. Jake stood very still. He had heard stories about dragons, but most people said they were just legends. Yet here was one, real and alive, trapped and suffering. The dragon's head turned toward Jake, and even though it could not see him, Jake felt like the creature knew he was there. "Easy there, big guy," Jake whispered. His voice was soft and calm, the same way he talked to scared animals. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon stopped making the painful sound and lifted its head slightly. Jake took a small step forward. The dragon did not move away or try to attack. Instead, it seemed to be listening to Jake's voice. Jake looked at the pile of rocks that had trapped the dragon. They were big, but not too big for his equipment to move. The dragon's left wing was caught under the largest rock, and its back legs were pinned by smaller ones. Jake could see that the dragon had been trying to free itself for a long time. The rocks around its claws were scratched and worn. "You've been stuck here for a while, haven't you?" Jake said, more to himself than to the dragon. The creature made a soft sound that almost seemed like an answer. Jake ran back to his shop and returned with his portable crane, some metal bars, and rope. The crane was designed to lift heavy engine parts, but it might be strong enough to move the rocks. He set up the equipment carefully, talking to the dragon the whole time. "This might take a while," he said. "But don't worry, I'm going to get you out of here." Jake started with the smaller rocks first. He used the metal bars as levers and the crane to lift the heavy ones. It was hard work, and sweat dripped down his face even though the night was cool. The dragon lay very still, as if it understood that Jake was trying to help as Jake worked. He noticed more details about the dragon. Its scales were not just black, but had tiny flecks of silver and blue that caught the light. The creature's claws were as long as Jake's hand and looked very sharp, but the dragon kept them folded against its body, making no threatening moves. The biggest rock was the hardest to move. Jake had to position his crane very carefully and use all his strength. The rock shifted slowly, inch by inch. The dragon's wing was finally free, but Jake could see that it was hurt. The wing moved strangely, and some of the thin skin between the wing bones was torn. "Almost there," Jake said, breathing hard. He moved the last few rocks away from the dragon's legs. The creature was finally free. The dragon slowly stood up, and Jake had to step back. Standing at full height, the dragon was enormous. Its head was level with the top of the canyon wall, and its wings, even damaged, spread wide. Jake felt very small next to such a powerful creature, but the dragon did not attack. Instead, it lowered its great head toward Jake. The creature's breath was warm and smelled like metal and fire. Jake reached out very slowly and touched the dragon's snout. The scales were smooth and warm under his hand. "You're welcome," Jake said quietly. The dragon made a sound that was almost like a purr. Then it tried to spread its wings and take off, but the damaged wing would not work right. The dragon stumbled and nearly fell. Jake could see the frustration in the creature's body language. "Your wing is hurt," Jake said, "and you can't see. How are you going to survive out here?" The dragon seemed to understand. It settled down next to the canyon wall and looked at Jake with its cloudy eyes. There was something in that look that Jake recognized. It was the same look he had seen in broken machines, something that wanted to work but could not. Jake made a decision that would change his life forever. "I'm going to help you," he said. "I don't know how yet, but I'm going to find a way." The dragon tilted its head as if it was thinking about Jake's words. Then it made a soft rumbling sound that almost sounded like gratitude. Jake spent the next hour making sure the dragon was comfortable. He brought water from his shop and some food, though he was not sure what dragons ate. The creature drank the water gratefully, but did not touch the food. As the sun began to rise, Jake knew he had to go back to his shop. People would be coming by soon, and he needed to think about what to do next. But looking at the dragon, he knew he could not just leave it here to suffer. "I'll be back," he promised. "I'm going to figure out how to help you see again." The dragon watched him go, and Jake felt like he was being given a great responsibility. He had fixed thousands of machines, but this was different. This was a living creature that needed his help. As Jake walked back to his shop, his mind was already working on the problem. He had never tried to fix eyes before, but he understood systems and sensors. Maybe, just maybe, he could build something that would help the dragon see again. He did not know it yet, but this decision would bring visitors from across the galaxy to his small repair shop on New Haven. Jake could not stop thinking about the dragon. All day long, as he fixed broken machines and helped customers, his mind kept going back to the canyon. During his lunch break, he walked to the canyon to check on the creature he had decided to call Onyx. The dragon was still there, lying in the same spot where Jake had left him. When Onyx heard Jake's footsteps, he lifted his great head and made a soft rumbling sound. Jake could tell the dragon was happy to see him. "How are you doing, big guy?" Jake asked, sitting down on a rock near the dragon's head. Onyx moved closer, and Jake could feel the warmth coming from the creature's body. Jake had brought some metal scraps from his shop, thinking maybe the dragon would eat them. Some of the old stories said dragons ate metal, but Onyx just sniffed the scraps and pushed them away with his nose. "Not hungry for that, huh?" Jake said. "What do you eat?" Over the next few days, Jake learned more about Onyx. The dragon seemed to live on some kind of energy that Jake did not understand. Onyx would sometimes put his head up toward the sky and seem to absorb something from the sunlight. Other times, He would press his claws against certain rocks and draw power from them. But the dragon's biggest problem was still his blindness. Jake watched as Onyx tried to move around the canyon. The dragon would bump into rocks and walls, getting more cuts and bruises. His damaged wing made it hard to balance, and he often stumbled. "This is no way to live," Jake said one evening as he watched Onyx struggle to find a comfortable place to rest. "You should be flying, not trapped down here." That night, Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about Onyx's eyes and how they had been damaged. The scars on the dragon's face looked old, like they had been there for years. But the eyes themselves might still work if Jake could find a way to help them see. Jake had always been good with electronics and sensors. In his shop, he had equipment that could detect heat, movement, and even electrical fields. Maybe he could build something similar for Onyx. The next morning, Jake started working on his idea. He pulled out every sensor and detector he had in his shop. Heat sensors from mining equipment, motion detectors from security systems, and even some advanced scanning devices that had been left behind by the colony's original builders. "What are you building?" asked Betty, one of his regular customers. She had brought her atmospheric processor in for repairs and was watching Jake work on a strange collection of electronic parts. "Something to help a friend," Jake said, not wanting to explain about the dragon. Most people would think he was crazy. Jake worked on the device for hours every day. The basic idea was simple, but making it work was very hard. He wanted to create a visor that could see the world and then translate that information into signals that Onyx's brain could understand. The hardest part was figuring out how to connect the device to a dragon's nervous system. Jake had never worked with anything like that before. He studied every medical book he could find and even contacted some scientists on other planets through the colony's communication system. "I'm working on a theoretical project," he told Dr. Lisa Green, a researcher on the planet Centauri Prime. "How would you connect electronic sensors to a large creature's nervous system?" Dr. Green was excited to help. "You would need neural interface technology," she explained over the video call. "The signals would have to be converted into electrical pulses that match the creature's brain patterns. It's very complex, but possible." Jake took notes on everything Dr. Green told him. He learned about neural mapping, electrical brain stimulation, and biosynthetic interfaces. Most of the technology was far beyond what he had in his shop, but Jake was good at making things work with whatever he had. He started by building a basic frame for the visor. It had to be big enough to fit over Onyx's head and strong enough to handle the dragon's movements. Jake used metal from old mining equipment and shaped it carefully with his tools. Next came the sensors. Jake connected heat detectors, motion sensors, and electromagnetic field readers to the frame. He added small cameras that could see in different types of light, including some that could detect infrared and ultraviolet. The most difficult part was creating the neural interface. Jake did not have the advanced equipment that Dr. Green had described, but he had something else. He had noticed that Onyx seemed to respond to certain electrical fields. When Jake used his welding equipment near the dragon, Onyx would turn his head toward the sparks. "You can sense electricity," Jake realized one day. "Maybe I can use that." Jake built a series of small electrical contacts that could be placed against Onyx's skin. These contacts would send gentle electrical pulses that matched the patterns the visor's sensors detected. If something was hot, the contacts would send one type of pulse. If something was moving, they would send another. But Jake wanted to do more than just help Onyx see. He had noticed that the dragon's eyes looked like they were trying to heal themselves. The white cloudiness would sometimes clear a little, then get worse again. Jake wondered if he could help the healing process. He added tiny medical devices to the visor that could deliver healing energy directly to Onyx's eyes. These devices used the same technology that the colony's medical center used to heal cuts and broken bones. Jake hoped they might be able to repair the damage to Onyx's eyes over time. After 2 weeks of constant work, Jake's invention was ready. The visor looked like a combination of a mining helmet and a medical device. It had sensors pointing in all directions, a complex computer system to process the information, and the neural interface contacts that would connect to Onyx's head. This better work, Jake said to himself as he carried the device to the canyon. Onyx was lying in his usual spot, but Jake could tell the dragon was getting weaker. Without being able to hunt or move around properly, Onyx was slowly dying. Jake had to try his invention now, even if it was not perfect. "Hey, Onyx," Jake called softly. The dragon lifted his head and made a questioning sound. "I've got something that might help you." Jake showed the visor to Onyx, letting the dragon smell it and touch it with his nose. The creature seemed curious, but not afraid. Jake had been visiting every day for weeks, and Onyx trusted him. "This might feel strange at first," Jake warned, "but I think it will help you see." Very carefully, Jake placed the visor over Onyx's head. The device was heavy, but the dragon held still as Jake adjusted the straps and positioned the sensors. The neural interface contacts touched Onyx's skin just behind his eyes. "Ready?" Jake asked. Onyx made a soft rumbling sound that Jake took. As agreement, Jake turned on the visor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Onyx's whole body went stiff. The dragon's eyes went wide, and he made a sound Jake had never heard before. It was not pain or fear, but something like amazement. The visor's sensors were working. They were detecting the world around Onyx and translating that information into electrical signals. The healing devices were also working, sending gentle energy into the dragon's damaged eyes. Onyx stood up slowly, his head moving from side to side as the visor showed him things he had not seen in years. He could see Jake standing nearby. He could see the canyon walls and the rocks scattered on the ground. He could even see heat patterns and electrical fields that normal eyes could not detect. "Can you see me?" Jake asked, waving his hand. Onyx turned his head directly toward Jake and made a sound that was definitely happy. The dragon took a careful step forward, then another. He was moving without bumping into anything. Jake felt tears in his eyes. His invention worked. He had given sight back to a blind dragon, but this was just the beginning. As Onyx got used to the visor, Jake realized he had created something much more powerful than he had planned. The device was not just helping Onyx see, it was helping him see better than he ever had before. Onyx could now detect things that were far away, hidden behind rocks, or even underground. The dragon's new sight was beyond anything Jake had imagined. And as the healing devices worked on Onyx's eyes, Jake could see that the dragon was getting stronger and more confident. "What have I done?" Jake wondered, but he was smiling. He had fixed something that everyone said was impossible to fix. He had given hope back to a creature that had given up. Onyx looked at Jake with his new sight, and Jake could see something in the dragon's expression that had not been there before. It was gratitude, but also something else, recognition. Onyx understood that Jake had done something extraordinary. What Jake did not know was that extraordinary things have a way of attracting attention from very far away. The change in Onyx was amazing. Within hours of putting on the visor, the dragon was moving around the canyon like a completely different creature. He no longer bumped into rocks or stumbled over uneven ground. Instead, he moved with the grace and power that Jake imagined all dragons should have. But what surprised Jake most was how quickly Onyx learned to use his new sight. The visor showed the dragon things in ways that normal eyes could not see. Heat patterns appeared as bright colors. Electrical fields showed up as glowing lines. Even the wind became visible as moving currents in air. You're seeing things I never imagined, Jake said as he watched Onyx explore the canyon. The dragon would pause at certain spots and tilt his head, as if he was reading invisible information in the air. On the second day after getting the visor, Onyx did something that made Jake's heart race. The dragon spread his wings and took off, flying out of the canyon for the first time since Jake had found him. Jake climbed up to the rim of the canyon and watched as Onyx soared through the gray sky above New Haven. The dragon's damaged wing seemed to be working better, and his flight was smooth and powerful. Other colonists came out of their homes and shops to watch the incredible sight. "Is that a real dragon?" asked Pete, who worked at the mining station. "I thought they were just stories." "Real as anything else on this planet," Jake replied, feeling proud of his friend. But Jake noticed something else about Onyx's flight. The dragon was not just flying for fun. He was following specific patterns in the air, making circles and loops that seemed to have meaning. When Onyx landed back in the canyon, he immediately began doing something that puzzled Jake. The dragon started making marks on the canyon walls. Using controlled bursts of what looked like superheated air, Onyx burned intricate patterns into the rock. The patterns were not random. They were clearly some kind of language or code. "What are you trying to tell me?" Jake asked, studying the patterns. They looked like a combination of mathematical formulas and artistic designs. Some parts reminded Jake of star maps, while others looked like complex engineering diagrams. Onyx would make a pattern, then look at Jake with his visor-enhanced eyes, as if waiting for understanding. When Jake did not respond, the dragon would make more patterns, each one more complex than the last. Jake started taking pictures of the patterns with his communication device. He sent them to Dr. Green and some other scientists he had contacted during his research. Maybe someone could help him understand what Onyx was trying to say. "These are fascinating," Dr. Green told him during their next video call. "The mathematical relationships are incredibly advanced." "Where did you say you found these?" "A friend made them," Jake said carefully. "Someone who's very good at mathematics, but can't speak normally." The patterns continued to appear over the next few days. Onyx would fly out of the canyon each morning, then return and add new symbols to his growing collection. Jake began to see connections between the patterns and Onyx's flights. Some symbols appeared after Onyx flew toward the mining stations. Others appeared after he flew toward the planet's small spaceport. "You're mapping the colony," Jake realized one day. "But why?" Onyx seemed to understand Jake's question. The dragon moved to a clear section of the canyon wall and began making a new pattern. This one was different from the others. It showed New Haven as seen from space, with lines connecting it to other star systems. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You're not from here, are you? You're from somewhere else." Onyx made a sound that seemed like confirmation. Then he did something that amazed Jake even more. The dragon began bringing him things. The first gift was a crystal that glowed with its own inner light. Jake had never seen anything like it. The crystal was perfectly formed and seemed to pulse with energy. When Jake touched it, he felt a slight tingle in his fingers. "Where did you find this?" Jake asked. Onyx had been flying around the planet, but Jake was sure no such crystals existed on New Haven. The next day, Onyx brought more gifts. Strange metals that were lighter than aluminum, but stronger than steel. Pieces of technology that looked like they came from civilizations far more advanced than anything humans had built. Each gift was beautiful and clearly valuable. Jake started to understand that Onyx was not just grateful for the visor. The dragon was trying to repay Jake for his help. But where were these gifts coming from? The answer came when Jake watched Onyx's flights more carefully. The dragon was not just flying around New Haven. He was flying up into the planet's atmosphere, higher than any normal aircraft could go. Sometimes Onyx would disappear for hours, returning with more gifts. "You're going to space," Jake said one evening as Onyx landed with another crystal. "You're visiting places up there and bringing me things." Onyx made a pleased sound and nuzzled Jake's shoulder gently. The dragon's behavior was becoming more and more like that of an intelligent friend rather than a wild animal. Jake's pet dragon began to spread through the colony. People came from all over New Haven to see Onyx and the incredible Visor Jake had built. Most visitors were amazed and friendly, but a few seemed worried. "Dragons are dangerous," warned Colonel Blake, the colony's security chief. "What if it attacks someone?" "Onyx isn't dangerous," Jake insisted. "He's gentle and intelligent. He's never hurt anyone." But Jake could see that some people were uncomfortable with having a dragon living so close to the colony. He began to worry that they might try to force Onyx to leave, or worse, try to hurt him. To ease people's concerns, Jake started bringing visitors to meet Onyx personally. He showed them how gentle the dragon was and explained how the visor worked. Most people left with a new respect for both Onyx and Jake's abilities. "You built that thing yourself?" asked Maria, a young engineer who worked at the spaceport. "That's incredible technology. I've never seen anything like it." "It's just basic sensors and computers," Jake said modestly. "Nothing too fancy." "But—" Maria shook her head. "Jake, what you've done is revolutionary. You've created a neural interface that works with a completely alien nervous system. Do you understand how impossible that should be?" Jake had been so focused on helping Onyx that he had not thought about the bigger picture, but Maria was right. What he had accomplished was far beyond what most scientists thought possible. As word spread, Jake began receiving messages from researchers on other planets. Everyone wanted to know how he had built the visor and how it worked. Some offered to buy his designs for huge amounts of money. "I'm not interested in selling," Jake told them all. "I built this to help a friend, not to make money." But the attention was making Jake nervous. He had always preferred to work quietly, without drawing attention to himself. Now people from across the galaxy were talking about his invention. Onyx seemed to sense Jake's worry. The dragon spent more time near the repair shop, as if he was protecting Jake from unwanted visitors. When reporters came to interview Jake, Onyx would position himself between them and Jake, making soft warning sounds. "You're looking out for me, aren't you?" Jake said, patting Onyx's neck. The dragon made a rumbling sound that Jake had learned meant yes. As the days passed, Jake noticed changes in Onyx's behavior. The dragon was spending more time looking up at the sky, as if he was watching for something. The patterns on the canyon walls became more urgent and complex. Onyx began making sounds that Jake had never heard before, deep, resonant calls that seemed to travel far beyond the canyon. "What are you calling for?" Jake asked one evening as Onyx made another series of complex sounds. The dragon looked at Jake with his visor-enhanced eyes and made a pattern in the dirt with his claw. This pattern was simpler than the others, but somehow Jake understood its meaning immediately. Onyx was calling for help, not for himself, but for Jake. The dragon knew that Jake's invention had attracted attention from people who might not have good intentions. Onyx was trying to protect his friend the only way he knew how. "You're calling your family," Jake realized. "Other dragons." Onyx made a sound of confirmation and looked up at the stars. Jake followed his gaze and wondered what was coming. He had fixed a blind dragon's sight, but he was beginning to understand that he had also set in motion events that would change his life forever. That night, Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about the gifts Onyx had brought him and the patterns on the canyon walls. The dragon was clearly more than just an animal. He was intelligent, connected to technology that humans did not understand, and possibly part of a civilization that spanned star systems. What have I gotten myself into? Jake wondered as he looked out at the stars. He had no idea that his question would be answered very soon, in a way that would exceed his wildest imagination. 3 days later, Jake's quiet life on New Haven would be changed forever by visitors who had traveled across the galaxy to meet the human who had healed their guardian. Jake was working on a broken water pump when every communication device in his shop started making noise at the same time. Emergency alerts were coming through the colony's communication system, and people were shouting in the streets outside. "Jake, get out here," called Betty from the doorway of his shop. "You need to see this." Jake dropped his tools and ran outside. The entire colony was looking up at the sky, and what Jake saw made his legs feel weak. 4 massive ships were hanging in the air above New Haven, so large they blocked out sections of the gray sky. The ships were unlike anything Jake had ever seen. They were not metal boxes like human spacecraft. Instead, they looked organic, like they had been grown rather than built. Their surfaces seemed to shift and change color, and they pulsed with inner light that reminded Jake of a heartbeat. "What are those things?" whispered Pete, who was standing next to Jake. They just appeared, out of nowhere. The largest ship was nearly 2 miles long and shaped like a massive wing. The other 3 were smaller, but still enormous by human standards. They hung in the air without making any sound, defying everything Jake knew about physics. Colonel Blake's voice came over the colony's communication system. "All citizens remain calm. We are attempting to establish communication with the unknown vessels. Stay in your homes and await further instructions." But Jake could not stay in his home. He had a terrible feeling that these ships were here because of him. He ran toward the canyon where Onyx lived, his heart pounding with fear and excitement. When Jake reached the canyon, he found Onyx standing on the highest rock, his head raised toward the sky. The dragon's visor was glowing brighter than Jake had ever seen it, and Onyx was making sounds that were definitely not random. The dragon was communicating with the ships. "Onyx, what's going on?" Jake called out. "Are those ships here for you?" Before Onyx could respond, a beam of light shot down from the largest ship. But this was not a weapon. The light was gentle and warm, and it surrounded both Jake and Onyx in a soft glow. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation, and suddenly he could understand what Onyx was saying. The dragon's sounds were not just noise. They were words, complex and beautiful. "They have come," Onyx said, his voice deep and musical in Jake's mind. "The Council of Guardians has answered my call." "Guardians?" Jake asked, amazed that he could understand the dragon. "What are guardians?" "We are the protectors of star systems," Onyx explained. "We watch over worlds and keep them safe from dangers that travel between the stars. I have been guardian of this sector for many years." Jake's mind reeled with questions. "But you've been blind and stuck in that canyon. How could you protect anything?" Onyx made a sound that Jake now understood was sadness. "I was injured in battle with creatures from the void between dimensions. My sight was lost, and I could no longer do my duty. I came to this remote world to die with honor, away from my people. But I fixed your sight," Jake said. "Now you can be a guardian again." "You did more than fix my sight," Onyx replied. "You gave me abilities I never had before. Your device allows me to see things that even healthy dragons cannot perceive. You have made me stronger than I was before I was injured." As they talked, Jake saw movement on the ships above. Smaller craft were detaching from the large vessels and flying toward the canyon. These smaller ships were also organic-looking, but they were about the size of human aircraft. "Are they coming to take you away?" Jake asked, feeling sad at the thought of losing his friend. "No," Onyx said. "They are coming to meet you. What you have done should have been impossible. You have earned the respect of my people." 3 of the smaller ships landed on the canyon floor, and beings emerged from them. Jake gasped when he saw them. They looked like humans, but their skin had a subtle scaled pattern that caught the light. They were tall and graceful, with eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. The leader of the group approached Jake and Onyx. She was wearing what looked like armor made of the same organic material as the ships, and she moved with the confidence of someone used to command. "I am Commander Zara of the Dragon Imperium," she said, speaking perfect English. "We seek the human who healed the guardian of the seventh realm." Jake looked at Onyx, who nodded encouragingly. "That would be me," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm Jake Martinez." Commander Zara studied Jake with interest. "You are not what we expected," she said. "Our records show that human technology is not advanced enough to create neural interfaces with dragon consciousness. Yet here stands Guardian Onyx, healed and enhanced by your work." "I just used what I had," Jake said modestly. "Basic sensors and computers. Nothing special." "Nothing special?" Commander Zara smiled, and Jake saw that her teeth were slightly pointed. "Jake Martinez, you have accomplished something that our best scientists said was impossible. You have not only restored sight to a guardian, but have given him abilities beyond his natural gifts." Onyx spoke up, his voice now understandable to everyone present. Jake worked for weeks without rest. He studied sciences he had never encountered before. He created new technologies from old parts. "This is the nature of humans. They see problems where others see impossibilities," Commander Zara nodded. "This is why we have traveled so far to meet you. The Dragon Imperium has been watching human expansion into space. Your species fascinates us. You take broken things and make them work better than they did before. What do you want from me?" Jake asked, though he was starting to suspect the answer. "We want to offer you a position," Commander Zara said. "Chief Innovation Officer of the Dragon Imperium. You would work with our scientists to solve problems that affect multiple species across our domain. In return, your species would be granted protectorate status and access to technologies that could transform human civilization." Jake felt dizzy. He had gone from being a small-town mechanic to being offered a job with an alien government that controlled multiple star systems. "I need to think about this," Jake said. "This is a lot to process." "Of course," Commander Zara said. "But while you consider our offer, perhaps you would like to see what we have to show you." She gestured toward the ships, and Jake saw that people were emerging from them. Not just the dragon people, but beings of other species as well. There were creatures that looked like living crystals, others that seemed to be made of light, and some that defied easy description. "The Dragon Imperium is not just dragons," Commander Zara explained. "We are a coalition of species that work together for mutual benefit. Each species contributes its unique abilities to solve problems that none could handle alone." Jake watched as the various beings set up what looked like a temporary base in the canyon. They worked together with efficiency and obvious mutual respect. It was unlike anything he had seen in human organizations. "What kind of problems do you solve?" Jake asked. "Space pirates that threaten trade routes," Commander Zara replied. "Cosmic anomalies that could destroy entire star systems. Diseases that jump between species. Wars between civilizations that have forgotten how to communicate. We also explore new regions of space and make contact with emerging civilizations. Like humans," Jake realized. "Exactly like humans," Commander Zara confirmed. "Your species has recently developed interstellar travel. Soon you will encounter problems that require cooperation with other species. We would like to help you prepare for that future." Jake looked at Onyx, who was listening to the conversation with obvious interest. "What do you think?" Jake asked his friend. "I think this is your destiny," Onyx replied. "You have a gift for seeing solutions where others see only problems. My people could benefit from your perspective, and you could learn things that would help your own species." Commander Zara stepped closer to Jake. "We are not asking you to abandon your people," she said. "We want to establish a permanent exchange program. Humans would work with us, and we would share our knowledge with humanity. You would be the first, but not the last." Jake felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. This was not just about his own future, but about the future of all humans. "Why me?" he asked. "There are scientists and engineers who know much more than I do." "Knowledge can be taught," Commander Zara replied, "but the ability to see beyond, conventional thinking cannot." You looked at a blind dragon and saw not an impossible problem, but a challenge to be solved. That perspective is rare and valuable. As they talked, more of the colony's residents began gathering at the edge of the canyon. Colonel Blake arrived with a squad of security officers, but they kept their distance when they saw that the aliens were peaceful. "Jake," Colonel Blake called out, "are you all right? Do you need assistance?" "I'm fine," Jake called back. "These people are friendly. They're here because of Onyx." Commander Zara turned toward the colonists. "People of New Haven," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the canyon. "We apologize for arriving without warning. We mean no harm to your colony or your species. We have come only to speak with Jake Martinez about his remarkable achievement." "What? Achievement?" Colonel Blake asked suspiciously. Jake looked at Onyx, who nodded encouragingly. It was time to tell the truth about what had happened over the past few weeks. "I built a device that restored sight to a blind dragon," Jake said. "But Onyx isn't just any dragon. He's a guardian, a protector of star systems. And these The inside of the Dragon Imperium ship was nothing like Jake had expected. Instead of cold metal corridors, the walls seemed to be made of a warm, living material that pulsed gently with soft light. The floors felt springy under his feet, and the air smelled like flowers and rain. "Our ships are grown, not built," Commander Zara explained as she led Jake through the corridors. "They are living creatures that work with us, not just machines we control." Jake reached out to touch a wall, and it felt warm and slightly soft. "This is incredible," he said. "How do you grow something this big?" "The same way you created a neural interface for a dragon," Commander Zara replied with a smile. "By thinking beyond what others believe is possible." They entered a large room that Jake realized was the ship's command center. Instead of buttons and screens, there were what looked like living control panels that responded to touch and thought. Beings of different species worked together at various stations, and Jake could see that they were all connected to the ship through bioneural interfaces similar to the one he had created for Onyx. "Welcome aboard the Heart of Stars," Commander Zara said. "This is our flagship and the mobile capital of the Dragon Imperium." A tall being made of what looked like living crystal approached them. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes. "So this is the human who accomplished the impossible," the being said. "Ion Scholar Resonance, Chief Science Officer of the Imperium." "Nice to meet you," Jake said, not sure if he should shake hands with someone made of crystal. Scholar Resonance seemed to understand Jake's confusion and extended what appeared to be a hand. When Jake shook it, it felt warm and smooth, and Jake could feel vibrations running through the crystal being's body. "I have studied your work on the Guardian's healing device," Scholar Resonance said. "The mathematical principles you used should not have worked with the materials you had available. How did you know to combine quantum resonance with bioneural mapping?" Jake felt embarrassed. "I didn't know those were the right words for it," he admitted. "I just tried different things until something worked." "Fascinating," Scholar Resonance said, his crystal body glowing brighter. "You achieved advanced scientific breakthroughs through intuition and experimentation. This confirms what we have observed about human problem-solving methods." Commander Zara led Jake to a comfortable seating area where they could talk privately. Through a large window, Jake could see New Haven getting smaller as the ship rose into space. "Before we continue," Commander Zara said, "you should understand more about what Guardians really are and why your achievement is so significant." She gestured to a section of the wall, which suddenly became transparent, showing a three-dimensional map of space. Thousands of star systems were marked with different colors and symbols. "The galaxy is a dangerous place," Commander Zara began. "There are cosmic storms that can destroy entire solar systems, void creatures that feed on life energy, space pirates with weapons that can crack planets, and worse things that come from dimensions beyond our understanding." Jake studied the map and saw that many of the star systems were connected by glowing lines. "What are those connections?" "Trade routes, communication networks, and patrol paths," Commander Zara explained. "But most importantly, they show where our Guardians are stationed. Each Guardian protects a sector of space, watching for threats and responding when help is needed." "How many Guardians are there?" Jake asked. "Not enough," Commander Zara said sadly. "We once had thousands, but many have been lost in battles over the centuries. Onyx was one of our best, which is why his injury was such a devastating loss." Jake began to understand the bigger picture. "So when I healed Onyx, I didn't just help one dragon. I restored one of your most important protectors." "Exactly," Commander Zara confirmed. "But you did more than restore him. Your device gave Onyx abilities that no Guardian has ever possessed. He can now detect threats that were previously invisible to us." As if summoned by their conversation, Onyx's voice came through the ship's communication system. "Jake, you should see this," the dragon said. Commander Zara led Jake to another section of the ship, where a large viewing screen showed Onyx flying alongside the vessel. But now Jake could see that the dragon was not just flying randomly. Onyx was following patterns of energy that were invisible to normal sight, but showed up clearly on his enhanced visor. "What is he tracking?" Jake asked. "Dimensional fractures," Scholar Resonance said, joining them at the viewing screen. "Weak points in space where void creatures might break through. Onyx can now see these fractures days before they become dangerous, giving us time to prepare defenses." Jake watched in amazement as Onyx flew to a seemingly empty area of space and began creating some kind of energy barrier with his breath. Within minutes, other dragon ships arrived and added their own energy to strengthen the barrier. "He just prevented an invasion," Commander Zara said quietly. "Hundreds of worlds are safer because of what you created." The full impact of what Jake had accomplished began to sink in. He had not just helped one creature. He had potentially saved countless lives across multiple star systems. "This is why we want you to work with us," Commander Zara continued. "Human thinking is different from ours. You see solutions where we see impossible problems. Together, we could accomplish things that neither of our species could achieve alone." Over the next few hours, Jake was introduced to many different beings from across the Dragon Imperium. There were the Harmony, who looked like living music and could communicate through sound and vibration. The Builders, who resembled geometric shapes and could construct anything they could imagine. The Nurturers, who were like walking gardens and could heal any injury or disease. Each species had unique abilities, but they all shared one thing. They were impressed by what Jake had accomplished and eager to work with humans. "Your species has something special," said Elder Grove of the Nurturers, her tree-like form swaying gently as she spoke. "You have the ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. This is rare in the galaxy." Jake spent several days aboard the Heart of Stars, learning about the Dragon Imperium and the challenges they faced. He was amazed by their technology and their peaceful cooperation between different species. But he was also surprised by how much they wanted to learn from him. "Could you show us how you built the neural interface?" Scholar Resonance asked. "We have tried to create similar devices for centuries, but we always approach the problem the same way. Your method was completely different. Jake spent hours explaining his thought process to fascinated scientists from multiple species. He showed them how he had combined different technologies in unexpected ways, and how he had used intuition to solve problems that formal education might have made more complicated. "This is revolutionary," said designer Angle of the Builders, his geometric form shifting with excitement. "We have been trying to build perfect solutions. But you built a working solution and then improved it through testing. This iterative approach could change how we develop all our technologies." As the days passed, Jake began to understand that the Dragon Imperium's offer was not just about his skills as an inventor. They wanted to learn human approaches to problem solving and apply them to challenges across the galaxy. "We have scheduled a meeting with the High Council," Commander Zara told Jake on his 5th day aboard the ship. "They want to formalize the alliance with humanity and discuss how we can work together." The High Council met in a vast chamber at the heart of the ship. Representatives from dozens of species sat in a circle, with Jake and Commander Zara in the center. Jake felt nervous speaking to such an important gathering, but he reminded himself that he was here because of his abilities, not despite his humble background. "Jake Martinez of Earth," said a being who appeared to be made of starlight, "you have proven that humanity possesses the qualities we value most: compassion, ingenuity, and the courage to attempt the impossible. Will you accept the position of Chief Innovation Officer and help us establish formal relations with your species?" Jake stood up, feeling the weight of representing all of humanity. "I accept," he said, "but I want to make sure this partnership benefits everyone. Humans have a lot to learn from you, but we also have things to offer. I want to create a true exchange where both sides grow stronger." The council members made sounds of approval in their various languages. The starlight being spoke again. "This is exactly the response we hoped for. You think not just of your own benefit, but of mutual growth. This wisdom will serve the Alliance well." "There is one more thing," Jake said, his voice growing stronger with confidence. "I want to establish a training program where young people from both our civilizations can work together on real problems. The future of this alliance depends on the next generation understanding each other." Commander Zara smiled proudly. "The Council approves this proposal," she announced. "Let this be the beginning of a new age of cooperation between species." As the formal ceremonies concluded, Jake found himself thinking about the path that had led him here. A few weeks ago, he had been a simple mechanic who had heard a creature in pain and decided to help. That single act of kindness had led to discoveries that would benefit countless beings across the galaxy. Later that evening, Jake stood with Onyx on one of the ship's obser.